I got to go to the Grammys this weekend, and that shit was fucking life-changing. Oh my God. I got to see Beyonce win Album of the Year for the first time. I got to see Chappell win Best New Artist. I saw Doechii perform, which was like, one of the best performances in Grammy history, I think. For sure the best performance of the night. Also, just in general, I feel like it was such an amazing Grammys. And the story of how I got to go was completely insane. I did not expect it at all. Literally at all. So I wanted to do an entire episode dedicated to like half of like a story time of what it was like to be there and just explaining like how I got invited and all that stuff. And then a second half of giving my thoughts on like the winners, what I was excited about, what I was not excited about, and also how I think that there are some really interesting statements that happened at this Grammy that really reflect like the state of the culture, the artistic culture, and also the political culture, which I think is super, super interesting. And I'm excited to like dive into from like a psychology perspective. So with that, welcome back to Nicky at Night. I am your host, Nicky Reardon. Thank y'all for being here. Holy shit, dude. This was like such a fucking pinch me moment. I'm still haven't fully wrapped my head around it. It was so insane, but what I keep coming back to is just like how fucking grateful I am. I am so grateful that I get to wake up every day and dedicate my life to art and talking about art, and that there's people out there who fucking like it and listen, and that has somehow contributed to me like being able to pay rent, you know? And I know that I'm so far from like the biggest creator, and I don't have, you know, hundreds of thousands of followers, millions of followers, whatever, but it was so cool to see that I really just think that people like really appreciated the quality of my work. And that was so awesome. It was so beautiful also to just be in a room with so many people who are so crazy passionate about music the way that I am and the way that all of us are. And, you know, be able to like sit next to all these people and like, you know, every time somebody won something or did a performance, they would like speculate as to how that's going to affect the rest of the winners, and talking about, you know, there was literally, I'll talk about later in the episode, like one part of the night where I literally was like sitting in this car, people talking for like arguably like 20 uninterrupted minutes about like why we thought Espresso is like the ultimate pop song, and like the composition of the song and the hook and the melody. And then I was debating that I actually thought Please, Please, Please is a better song. And, you know, and like literally to just like be like, no, Espresso is better. And this is why. So like, I don't know, just like scratched my brain in a beautiful way that I loved. So before we talk about the results and all things I want to talk about, let's get into like the lore and the story time of how it happened. So I had, side note, reached out to the Grammys. I literally found the email and like emailed it, and it was just like, hey, like I would love to come and like do content or something, blah, blah, blah. They responded to me initially, which I was so excited about. And I pitched them this idea of doing It Takes 10 Years to Be an Overnight Success, because that was like the video series that really blew up like for me on TikTok and all that fun stuff. And also like all of those people went on to be nominated for Best New Artists this year. So I thought it would be so cool to like do it live at the thing. They were super into it. And then I think after the fires and stuff just happened, they just stopped responding. But that is so okay. I then like sent them a new email and like tried following up, blah, blah, blah. I think it was just giving like the entire objectives of the event changed, and they had to do all this messaging and make sure, you know, all the sponsors were donating to the fires and blah, blah, blah. So, you know, I'm grateful that they went in that direction. So anyways, I had thought I wasn't going to be able to go until literally like a week prior. One of my amazing friends, Megan, shout out to Megan, who works at Spotify, texts me and she's like, hey, don't know what you're doing this Sunday, but like if you want to go to the Grammys, we would love to. I said, actually, yes, I'm available. Thank you so much. Are you kidding? I'm available. This Sunday, I'm available. Next Sunday, I'm available. Every Sunday until the end of fucking time. What do you mean? That was it. They literally just sent me a text message and I was like, okay, cool. Had not heard anything for days and days. And then I was like, hey, girl, just following up. Hadn't heard anything. That they were like, no, like it's happening. We're just like figuring out logistics stuff, blah, 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 blah. Until literally, I think the morning of or the morning before, I finally got like a ticket in my email, like from the actual Grammys thing. I was like, holy shit, it's happening. I literally did not tell any of my friends or anybody I knew, because I have this weird superstition that if you tell people things when you really want it, sometimes it like doesn't come true. I don't know why. It's a weird superstition I have, or like I get excited about it. And then like, you know, I have to like deal with the disappointment of people asking about it. So to everyone, including my mother, it was a complete and utter surprise, which was really, really awesome. But I got to go with Spotify. It was so insane. They had like a little like booth section that they had that was so cool. And again, like I think probably my favorite part about that experience was like just being in a room of like 20 to 30 people who have dedicated their entire lives and entire careers, years longer than I have, some even decades longer than I have, to studying music, to being a part of the music industry, to uplifting the industry, to innovating tech and streaming and all these things that have revolutionized the way that we get to listen and discover artists. And to just like sit in a room with those people and like talk about music for hours. Yeah. Yeah, that was fucking doing it for me. It felt like this like physical manifestation of all these things that we talk about and listen to and, think about on a daily basis that was just absolutely unreal. It was an unreal experience. It's literally like a canon event that I will like tell my kids about one day. You know what I mean? Like that is how much it meant to me and how much I'll never forget it. I really think too, like this awesome moment of really maybe realizing that there is space for somebody like me in this music industry with zero fucking talent when it comes to music, anything, cannot sing, cannot write, cannot do anything. But I just love to analyze it and understand the meaning of the art and how it affects the culture. And that, I think that there are a lot of people, especially just like in pop culture as a concept, that skews towards this idea of being very what tabloid magazines were in the 90s, of like so-and-so's dating this person and so-and-so has beef and talking about blind items and blah. And I just so don't fucking care. I don't care. I think it's weird. I think it's weird that people like speculate so deeply on personal things that have nothing to do with them. And I find it so fascinating how we all collectively agree, like, oh my God, free Britney and what happened to her was so awful and tragic and the way this media system ate her alive, blah, blah, blah. And then those people who say that will go on to do the exact same things, but just like making a TikTok about it instead of like it being on the cover of a magazine in the grocery store. I like to be like, no, like I have no interest in talking about who somebody's dating. You know what I mean? Like unless they're writing a song about it and talking about it as their art and want that to be a subject of the conversation that they have initiated themselves, like I'm just not interested. And it was really cool, I think, to see that rewarded one time, that I got to go there and I got to be in that room with those people. And I think it's because of the integrity. I think it's because there was maybe some semblance that they knew I wasn't going to fucking talk shit about anything and everything the entire night. And that was actually interested in contributing to the great, amazing creative art that would win. So yeah, I think that's my statements. And with that, let's get into my thoughts on the winners. Starting with Beyonce Album of the Year. This has become a very contentious thing on the internet, I think, for a few reasons. I think number one, I think genuinely many people who dislike Cowboy Carter are people who miss the thesis of it altogether. Like this entire statement I've seen about people talking about like Beyonce had 73 writers, whatever on it, blah, blah, blah. Like, I think that is the point of the album. Like, there's songs on it that have literally like 4 features. In one song, there's people like Dolly Parton who come and just like say a few lines, or like Linda Martell, like they don't even actually sing. Like, the point of it was to be this statement on the concept of country music and the people who get to be a part of country or what it means to be American. And that is very, very much from her point of view as a black woman, this black woman born and raised in Houston, Texas, who has parents from Alabama. Like, she is country in every sense of the word. And to be denied from that community, to have been shunned from that community from things like the CMAs, but also just the blatant racism, the systemic oppression of like black people in general, and also just even I'm sure in her youth, so many experiences of, this idea of like really loving where you're from and loving what made you and being this proud, Houston girl. She talks about it all the time, but also that so much of the dominant culture is so unaccepting to who you are and who you were born as, and those things being at odds with one another for the entirety of her youth. And it was her, I think, also like reclaiming a lot of these, again, these symbols of America, like this idea that the cowboy is this like macho white man is eternally fascinating to me because it's a product of Hollywood. Like, one, for many, 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 most of history, like Texas was a part of what is now Mexico. And you'd have like most, cowboys and whatnot were people who are Mexican Americans or like formerly enslaved, like freed slaves that were still working in these agricultural environments. And it was not predominantly like white cool boys, like blah, 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 with their guns and being badass. Like, it was it's an agricultural job. It's a labor intensive. You're in the sun for 10 hours a day. It was not this glamorized thing to be a cowboy back then. It has become glamorized through like movies and Hollywood and blah, blah, blah. And I think it was really cool that she, reclaimed that. And also, again, like Houston, Texas is literally the home of like the Texas rodeo. Like it is country. And so I think a lot of people miss that thesis altogether. And when they complain about the writers, I think that was actually like the point. I think what she wanted to do was to have many, many perspectives and different people. Also, I think she understood that there would be a lot of attention on this album, and she wanted to use that to uplift a lot of creative voices of marginalized groups, whether that's, like Shaboozey and what happened to his career after that, or even just like Ryan Beatty is somebody who wrote the song Bodyguard, and he was a writer on the album as a whole. And, another thing, Cowboy's historically very gay, if you look it up. But I think that was part of the goal. Like, it was part of the goal for all of these people to win. It was not some, like, detrimental thing. So I think that's, like, one of the big issues people in criticism have of it. Two, I think there is this, even within Beyonce's fandom, I think 90% of Beyonce fans would agree that Cowboy Carter is not her best album. Like, personally, I think her best album is Lemonade. It's my favorite Beyonce album. I think it was like the most raw emotionally. I think it was like visually her at her, like the music videos from that album are just absolutely unreal. It was her just telling this cohesive story and also like taking this very public media story about her being cheated on and just like this therapeutic outlet of music, So I think a lot of Beyonce fans were like, oh, it's like, I guess like a bummer she doesn't win at her best. You know what I mean? Like I would have loved, even I would argue, I think you could make the argument that Renaissance is better than Cowboy Carter. At the very least, it was bigger, like more commercially successful, I think. I think that was like what a lot, it felt like it was like a Lifetime Achievement Award. Not like this is the best album Beyonce has ever created. Does that make sense? But extremely happy Beyonce won. I also think, again, like this album has such a cultural impact on what it did for the genre. Like when you look at the careers of people like Shaboozey this past year, and just how much, I think it has set the precedent now for a lot of labels and these people in the industry and radio stations and all of these things that like there can be a successful Black female in this genre. Like literally that had never happened before. She's the first person to win best country album as a Black woman. So that is beautiful and amazing, and we should celebrate that. Like, that is so cool. I think in my prediction, I had said that I thought Billie was going to win. I wanted Brat to win, but I thought Billie was the most likely. I think the interesting thing about this is, like, I would argue that Hit Me Hard and Soft is Billie at her best. I think it's the best album Billie has ever made. For sure, it's been the most commercially successful album that Billie has ever made. I literally today, the day I'm recording this, I saw that Birds of a Feather broke the record for the fastest song to hit 2 billion streams. Like it's at 2 billion streams in less than a year, which is insane. But interesting that Billie went home empty-handed was super, super fascinating to me. I had predicted her of being like one of the big winners of this one. I also think notoriously the Grammys just love her. But we'll talk about why, I think, as to like later on. Going to Record of the Year and Song of the Year to Kendrick. Absolutely, dude. Absolutely. I was like, for sure he was going to win one. I am happy he won both. I think he deserves it. Again, it was Not Like Us was like such a culturally impactful song. It was everywhere. It had united the entirety of the rap community in a way that I think we've really never seen any artist do. I mean, Drake has been the biggest rapper for a decade now. He is the second most streamed artist in history. And I love all the discourse about, people talking about like, it was a year for the haters. Like people always say like being a hater doesn't get you anywhere, but being a hater won Kendrick Lamar Record of the Year and Song of the Year, which I think is hilarious. And also, I wouldn't say Not Like Us is Kendrick's best song he's ever made, but I do think right now is Kendrick in his prime. Does that make sense? Like what he is doing now artistically, like even, thinking about like the Juneteenth performance and this tour he's about to go on, I think is going to be Kendrick at his best. He's at his boldest. He's at his most confident. He is not afraid to hold anything back in a way that is really, really cool to see in the art and how much it is like reaching people and just what he's saying, anything and everything that pops to his mind, which we love. And I also think that energy of him winning Record of the Year and Song of the Year and then going on this tour is going to be insane. It's going to be so, so insane. I'm so excited to watch. So excited to be there. I heard tickets are already going for like $1,300 for like a floor ticket. So yeah, hoping to find a way that I can finesse. Chappell winning Best New Artist, absolutely love. I think it has been a long time since we've had like a true Best New Artist story. You know, I would say the last like really like 0 to 100, you had never heard of them within a calendar year, was probably Billie Eilish in 2020. And, you know, from Chappell to going literally like not even a million monthly listeners to like over 80 million, amassing crowds of over 100,000 people, outselling festival headliners, constantly having to be moved up in stages and times because her crowds were so massive, the venue physically couldn't contain them. Like that, it's been so long since we had a story like that. And also I think it was just really, this was a fucking album. It was so good. It was so cool that like, you know, I think opening for Olivia and like the Tiny Desk was really when she started to get momentum. And then Good Luck Babe was really the song that took off. But I also really loved that this was not just a song getting really, really big and getting a nomination. It was like the entire album took off. You know, there's like Pink Pony Club and Red Wine Supernova and Feminine Phenomenon, Super Graphic Ultra Girl. Like all these songs have gotten hundreds of millions of streams. Like it was very cool to see the entire body of work be collectively loved and appreciated. And also, I think just in general, the Chappell performance was arguably one of the best of the entire Grammys. It was this FU moment to everybody who effed her over. You know, like I think it was beautiful and poetic that she chose to do Pink Pony Club, even though Pink Pony Club wasn't nominated for anything, right? Good Luck Babe was. Pink Pony Club wasn't. And typically you see people, artists, perform the songs that are nominated, right? Sabrina did Espresso and Please, Please, Please. Billie did Birds of a Feather. Charlie did Von Dutch and Guess. But Chappell chose to do a song that had 0 nominations. Why? Because that is the song that got her dropped from her label 4 years ago. And all of the people, all of the executives at that label who made the decision to drop her were in that audience, were in that room. And they had to watch her go and do that exact same song. Nothing about it changed. The only thing that changed was the people around her and the people who believed in her. And it was this poetic FU to them. The song as a whole is this love letter to Los Angeles, this love letter of what Los Angeles represents, being this beacon of freedom for the queer community, a place that encourages artistic expression, where people go to chase their biggest and wildest dreams. And, you know, to have so much, the Grammys being in Los Angeles after this immense fire that tore down so many people's homes. It was a beautiful, poetic moment to speak to LA is still here, and the dream of what LA and Hollywood represents is alive. I think there's a really cool RuPaul quote that's like, Hollywood is not a place, Hollywood is an idea. It is this feeling, this embodiment of what it means to pursue an artistic dream. That is what Hollywood is. And, you know, I think Pink Pony Club is a song that so represents that, especially from this perspective of being this Midwestern girl and not having accepting parents and not caring. You know, I also think it was cool. She said that the reason all of the dancers were dressed up as clowns was because everybody back home in high school and stuff used to always call her a clown and call other queer people clowns for wearing makeup. So then the entire point was like, oh, I'm a clown. Like, I'll show you what a fucking clown is. And I thought that was so cool. Again, it was this I'm here moment. You know, it was this I am here. Chappell Roan is not a one-hit wonder. She is here to stay. And what Chappell Roan, I think, represents as an artist is really, really beautiful. It's beautiful. Again, also, I've talked about this a lot, how I think it's so fascinating that so many of queer icons in music are not actually gay. You know, we have Ariana Grande and Charlie XCX and Harry Styles and Lady Gaga and Madonna. People have done so much for the queer community, but are not actually writing songs from the perspective of, I am a woman in love with another woman, and this is how this woman broke my heart. Or I am in love with this person and they don't accept their own sexuality, even though I know and can feel deep down that these emotions between us are real. You know, like we've never had an artist doing what she's doing, actually able to write from these direct, very niche perspectives of what it means to be a queer person today. And that is beautiful. Again, like I'm very, very excited for the future of her and just everything that's going on. But the best performance of the entire night, hands down, was Doechii. Oh my God. The way my jaw hit the floor. I Could not believe it. The dancers, the choreography, the outfit change rip off the treadmill was everything. She said that this entire performance was meant to be inspired by a Broadway production, which I think was so cool if you watch back to a lot of the dance moves and the way they do these like choreographed movements. And she even does like the jazz hands and stuff at one time. It's like so showy and performative and theatrical in a way that's like so cool to watch. It's so visually stunning. Again, like it literally felt like you were watching a play. And I love that also that she did Catfish on top of Denial Is a River, because I think for a lot of people, that was maybe, for many people in the audience and people watching at home, the first time they've ever seen Doechii. And they might have heard Denial Is a River, but I love that they also showed, like started to integrate a new song to get some more people interested and intrigued in the discography, which is fun. Also, I just love, again, like the line in Catfish where it's like Doechii the Don, Doechii the Dean, Doechii the Supreme. To do that on stage at the Grammys, come on. Come on. Like, so cool. You know what I mean? And then I also thought, like, I really loved the Sabrina performance. I think she's such a performer, dude. Like, I love that she... Like, I think what I love about a Sabrina performance right now is that it doesn't feel like it's something anybody else can do. Like, the way she leans into these, like, 50s and 60s, like, television shows, and she has the little cane and the spotlight. Like, it feels like this ironic television production is what we're watching, like a vintage television production. And the trapdoors and, like, you know what I mean? It's just so fun and whimsical. It is self-aware. It is humorous. And I think deep down, that's who Sabrina is as a person. Like if you watch her interviews, you can tell she's very witty and sharp and funny. And she throws these one-liners into conversations. And Short and Sweet as a whole, as like an album, was very witty and self-aware. You think of like the camaraderie line and stuff like that. Like that really was the theme of this album. And I think she's really, really started to craft this like character and her performances around that. The pint-sized pop star. And, being really satirical, that is so cool. And I think she's really mastered that, and what I'm really excited to do. Also, we're getting a deluxe soon. Love that. I'm excited. I think the next step for Sabrina as an artist is to really craft as equal of a character and sonic presence that she has in songs like Espresso into more sad, deep, introspective songs. I think one of the best songs off the album is Lie to Girls. It's such a good story. It's so beautiful, talking about how, you don't have to lie to girls because they'll lie to themselves, and how much we are willing to not see the red flags when we love somebody, or not look at, always try to see the best intentions in this person because you want them to be something that they're not. It's such a beautiful story. It's, so I think, a very good message for a young girl to hear, but she has not found a way to like bring the same oomph to that type of music that she has with a song like, again, like Espresso and Please, Please, Please and Nonsense and Feather. I do really think she had that oomph with like Because I Like a Boy. It's sad, but it has this like massive payoff, and she's screaming at the end. Like, I need her to figure out how to do like a Driver's License or like a Happier Than Ever type song where it can be very sad and very dramatic and loud and big and bold at the same time. And I think she actually absolutely has that in her. She is such an incredible artist, such a good performer. And I think that this was just her, she's in her fun pop whimsy side right now, which is really, really cool. Also, interestingly, I thought the set for the Billie performance for Birds of a Feather was awesome. That's what I wish the music video looked like. I think we all did. I think she's realized that. I also think it's definitively Billie's weakest era visually. Like, I thought that the music videos from this album were the worst that they've been. Not that they were bad. They just, like, they weren't When the Party's Over. Her Crying Ink was, like, such a shocking, culture-shocking music video, I remember, and so perfect for that song. I think that's another thing that like bothered me, again, like the Birds of a Feather music video. It's like, it's literally a song like Birds of a Feather, we should stick together. Like, she's singing about another person, and the entirety of that music video is only her by herself. Not that it's bad. It's just like, it's not representing the themes of the song. Like, I want to see her running around and skipping in a field with Phineas or some girl that she's in love with, whatever, you know what I mean? Or her mom. Like, there was such like rich opportunity, I think, to build such a beautiful, wholesome visual around that. Or again, like I say, like the biggest flopped opportunity of that album was Chihiro. The song Chihiro is an entire reference to the movie Spirited Away, which is a Studio Ghibli movie. The animation is stunning, and it would have been so cool if she did a music video that was entirely anime. Like they literally paid an animation team to make a 4-minute short of like Billie Eilish as an anime character going through this world of like Spirited Away, like in that sort of Studio Ghibli style. Oh my God. Oh my God, it would have broken the internet. Are you kidding? That would have been so cool. Or maybe like halfway through, like, it starts with her as a real person, then she transforms into a cartoon, or vice versa. She starts as a cartoon and then she like escapes into the real world. Whatever. Like, there's potential there, is what I'm saying. And I was kind of like, they weren't bad. They just didn't have that same oomph that album 1 had. So I think that was also maybe another reason when talking about her not winning album of the year that was super interesting. Also, the way that Grammy voting works is a very interesting thing. I think a lot more people should take into consideration when they're, making their bets or guesses as who's going to win. It's a raw democratic process, right? It's just raw voting. So a lot of the times when there are multiple big songs in one genre, they don't win because, let's say that there's 5,000 people who love pop music and 4,000 people who love country music, for an example, right? Or for this example, we'll use rap, right? There's 4,000 people who love rap. That's their favorite genre. They listen to rap every day. There's 5,000 people who listen to pop. Pop's their favorite music they every day. Let's say it gets to a final 4 situation of songs. It's Birds of a Feather, Espresso, Good Luck Babe, and Not Like Us by Kendrick Lamar. All 4,000 people who love rap music, that is their favorite genre, are all voting for Not Like Us, right? If you look at the 5,000 people who all love pop, some of them are going to vote for Birds of a Feather. Then another portion of them is going to vote for Good Luck Babe. And then another portion of them is going to vote for Espresso, whatever, right? When there's a lot of the same thing, they start to cannibalize each other. And when there's one big song in one genre, it unites the entire voting base of that genre to all vote collectively, which is an interesting thing. You'll see this a lot. If you look at past winners and past nominations of many years. I think like a great example of this was the year that Casey Musgraves won Album of the Year, I think, over Beyonce, was one of the ones that people were really shocked about. And again, not that I think Golden Hour is an incredible song, incredible album. Like, Casey Musgraves is a great artist. But I'm saying that's just how this like voting process works. I'm not trying to say it's a good thing. I'm not trying to say it's a bad thing. I'm not trying to take bias. Like, I'm just explaining how it physically works, like how the Academy votes, and how these sorts of things work. So it's why a lot of times you'll see, again, like these like niche picks of like a one random genre vote break through, and people are like, who's voting for that? You know what I mean? So overall, do I think this is one of the best Grammys of all time? Absolutely. Not even close. The show was incredible. And there was this really, really interesting TikTok I watched that I've been thinking about for so long. Like, it has really just stuck in my mind. Truly, maybe even something I need to make a full episode or video about. Talking about just the state of culture and art versus politics right now. How it is so fascinating that if you look at the world of, music, it is Kendrick Lamar, rap is the biggest it's ever been. It's Beyonce, a black woman winning Album of the Year. We have the emerging artists right now are Chappell Roan, who's so unapologetically queer. It's Charlie XCX, who is for the girls and the gays, and also making references to these people like Julia Fox and Gabriette. Doechii, being this like massive, again, like huge dancer, huge performer, taking it back to 90s rap inspiration. The entire culture of art is so dominated by people of color and queer people. And right now, our political culture is so dominated by this hyper conservative white man. And this TikTok I'm talking about, she really compares what's happening now to back in the 80s, this area of Reagan, when the biggest artists in the world were like 70s and 80s. You think of like Diana Ross, you think of Michael Jackson, Freddie Mercury, like all these people would come off of this massive, expressive, artistic wave. You think of, Andy Warhol and Studio 54, like it was so queer and so creative and so for women and people of color. And in that time, the political climate was so deeply conservative. It was this Reagan and blah, 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 like the very uptight white man. And when you think about how these, history repeats itself, I think we're in a very, very similar place where like, what is the entry point for a straight, conservative, cisgendered white man, right? Like he doesn't understand Chappell. He doesn't understand Doechii. He doesn't understand Cowboy Carter. He doesn't understand GNX by Kendrick Lamar. There's no anchor point in the culture for what this straight white man is. And that is why they feel like a minority, in air quotes, for the first time in their life. And why they now have this, we need to stop DEI, and we need to do this, and we need to do that. Because for the first time, it feels like all these big things happening around them are not directly catered to them and for them. And that is something that happened, again, very similarly in the 80s. And we saw this big pendulum swing toward this big, like, Reagan-esque figure of this uber conservative white man. And the people who aligned with Trump really felt that way. They felt like they were the victim. They are being displaced in America because of immigrants, because of this, because of that. And it's really fascinating how I think we're seeing that now. Again, even at the Grammys too. Like I like looking at that like best new artist medley, that they did, and like how incredible, like, again, like someone like Doechii's performance was, and how like out of place someone like Benson Boone kind of felt, or like Teddy Swims, you know what I mean? Like it just felt like you like went to see like Benson Boone and Teddy Swims and then compare that to just like what Doechii did and what Ray did literally minutes after. Felt so much like it was their performance. It wasn't like they were the ones like carrying the energy of the room, even being there, like you could feel it. It was palpable. And that is this really interesting thing. Again, I think we're seeing this divergence of, political climate and those cultures, like these, people idolizing these billionaires like Jeff Bezos and Elon Musk. But the artistic culture is so expressive. It's so, again, even fascinating to me how the political culture is so built off like idolizing billionaires and these big people who have been big and have this amassed wealth and status. Whereas I would say music right now is more focused on new and emerging artists than it ever has been, right? Again, these 10 years to be an overnight success stories, like the exciting conversation after the Grammys was people talking about Doechii, was people talking about Chappell, Sabrina, blah, blah, blah. This was an event that didn't even feel so much about the bigger legacy artists that were there. And that is super, super interesting. This divergence of, and also fascinating that this is so popular. It's so fascinating that, somebody can write a song like Good Luck Babe or Pink Pony Club, or Denial is a River, and it amasses hundreds of millions of streams. Yet at the same time, people are voting in a completely opposite direction. Like that's a really fascinating thing to think about and introspect on. But I think as a beacon of hope, I think what it shows is that I think people have this idea that randomly this conservative wave has completely taken over America as a whole. And I think that this really proved to me that that's not true. It has overtaken a very big part. And I think there are it's like a very loud minority will always outweigh a silent majority. It is a very loud group of small people who are saying they hate DEI and there's a plane crash and that's because DEI and we have to remove HIV and LGBTQ from the government websites and blah, 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 blah. Like, I don't think most people feel that way. I think there's a very powerful group of people that feel that way and have radicalized, some people on the internet. But overall, I think, especially again, as these things like their material conditions continue to worsen, like the tariffs just went through. Let me know how your eggs cost. It's literally that. It is literally that. And to see that, these messages around artistic and creative expression and things that should be very counterintuitive. Typically art is very reflective of culture. But I think right now what we're seeing with art is it being this polar divergence from culture, because also while these, the political people, very, again, like politics being this very like white conservative nationalist sentiment, all of these people who are excluded from that, women, people of color, queer people, are congregating in these other spaces, these artistic spaces. And the people who feel excluded from that, this, conservative straight white man, are congregating around that. And the difference between the two is that the political people don't actually have the best interests of their group at mind. Like they're giving tax cuts to the rich and increasing the cost of your eggs. So, we'll see where that goes. Anyways, just random thoughts on the Grammys as a whole. I could not thank you all enough for being here. I'm sorry you're seeing this probably a week late. If you followed me on Instagram, you would have known the day it happened. Isn't that crazy? Isn't that crazy? Maybe you should check that out. But please check out the show on Spotify. Oh my God, we're so close. We're getting to our goal of 10K. I think we have like 7,300 followers on there right now. Please show some support to the Spotify girls. Okay, Spotify is the one who brought me. Thank you, 1,000 fucking times over. Yeah, I don't know. I think that's it, and I'll see y'all next week. Bye.